Okay, for this short video, I'm going to teach you how to complete the square, both when you're factorizing and also using it as a method to solve a quadratic equation. Right, this first example, factorize negative 2x squared plus 3x minus 7. The first rule of completing the square is to make the first term x squared. So we have to factorize the negative 2 out of this expression so that we can then go on to the next step. Alright, so if we take out the negative 2, you see that we're left with x squared minus 3 over 2x plus 7 over 2. If you just quickly check in your head by multiplying the negative 2 in, you'll get the original terms in the original expression. The second rule is that we take the b term. Remember that this is ax squared plus bx plus c. That's the format. And we halve the b term, and then we square the answer. So we don't have to worry about the sign, the negative 3 over 2 or positive 3 over 2, because we're squaring it anyway, so it'll always be positive. So in this case, half of 3 over 2 is 3 over 4, and we square that, and we get then 9 over 16. The third rule is that we add and subtract this new term that we worked out in Rule 2, and I'll show you how to do that. So there we go. The 3 over 2 squared became 3 over 4, which became 9 over 16, and I've added it and subtracted it so that we keep the value the same. And then the whole idea is that this expression that I'm highlighting in green is now a perfect square, which we can factorize. Right, so I've factorized that perfect square trinomial, and it's quite easy to factorize because the first term is always going to be the square root of x squared, so x, or whatever variable you're using, and then the sign will be whatever sign you have before your b value, in this case negative, and then your last term will simply be the square root of the value that you added to the equation. And then the last thing we need to do is work out these two fractions and write their answer in this case. Negative 9 over 16 plus 7 over 2 is 47 over 16. The last step that you need to do is distribute the negative 2, not into the small bracket, but just into the big bracket so that we don't have brackets within a bracket. Alright, so that gives us negative 2 into x minus 3 over 4 all squared minus 47 over 8. Right, you don't need to know the application that I'm going to show you for the exam, but just out of interest where this comes from. If we had to sketch this parabola, it would look something like that. And if you look at the coordinates of the turning point, 3/4, you can see the 3/4 there, and the negative 47 over 8, the y value, is there. So that's the application, but that comes next year. All right, and now quickly I'm just going to show you how we use equations to complete the square as well. Right, if you look at this one, x squared minus x minus 6 equals 0. We can actually factorize this very easily into two brackets to get what I've done on the right hand side there. X minus 3 into x plus 2 equals 0. Therefore x equals 3 or x equals negative 2. Right, but with completing the square, the steps are almost the same. First, we have to make the first term x squared. In this case, it's already x squared, so there's nothing that we need to factorize or anything like that. But the second part is to halve the b term. So in this case, the b term is 1, negative 1, but we don't have to worry about the negative. So 1 divided by 2, or 1 halved, is a half, and a half squared is a quarter. So what I first say is take the constant over to the right-hand side. So the negative 6 has gone over to become 6. And now we add that a quarter, but this time we add it to both sides. So we don't have to add and subtract. Because it's an equation, we can do the left and the right separately. We've added it to both sides so that we've kept the equation equal. Then we factorize the left-hand side, which is a perfect square. So we know that a perfect trinomial at least. So we know that the sign will be negative, because that's a negative. So we know that we're going to have a negative there. And the quarter, which is the last term over here, we take the square root of that, which is a half. So it always works out quite nicely when it factorizes. So it's x squared, x minus a half all squared equals 6 plus a quarter, which is 25 over 4. Always work in fraction form. in improper fraction form, not 6 1/4 or 6,25, and I'll show you why in the next step. So now we need to isolate the x, so we're going to square root both sides to get x minus a half equals plus minus root, sorry, not root, okay, because 25 over 4 is a perfect square, it's 5 over 2. If you don't have a perfect square, then you leave the surd sign there for as long as you need. All right, now let's take the half over, so x equals a half plus or minus 5 over 2. So we're going to deal with those differently, all right? Either it's a plus in between the two or it's a minus. So basically either x is equal to a half plus 5 over 2 or x equals a half minus 5 over 2. And those are quite simple to work out. 1 plus 5 is 6, divided by 2 is 3. And then 1 minus 5 is negative 4. So x equals negative 4 divided by 2, which is negative 2. Same solutions as we got up here. I hope that helps.